Hello friends, and a warm welcome to the Slow Living Collective. This is a podcast about slowing down, living seasonally and embracing an intentional life. So introductions. I'm Amy. I'm a 30-something mum of two, homemaker, home educator and allotment gardener. And these podcasts are love notes from me, sharing the things that I sometimes need to hear myself as well. In these episodes, I'm going to delve into what it means to walk a different path, to stepping outside societal norms and embracing all the beauty that it provides. From educating our children outside of the school system, living in a small home by choice, surrounding ourselves with a life of intention instead of living a life by default. I welcome you to come on this journey with me and open your mind to maybe a different way of living. I hope you find what you're looking for within the words of these podcasts, and I hope they speak to you in your own unique way. Hello friends, and welcome back to another podcast. Before I carry on, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who reached out to me from last week's podcast. If you haven't listened to it, it was about why millennials are turning to modern homemaking. And I got a lot of people reaching out to me on Instagram, connecting with me and just saying they really resonated with the things I spoke about during that podcast, and that fills me with so much joy because firstly, I don't think there's a lot of people that talk about modern homemaking, and secondly, I love community and I love speaking to like-minded people. Walking a different path can sometimes feel like you're the only one doing it, and I never want anyone else to feel that way. So if you want to connect with me over on Instagram, you'll find me at Life on Plot 44. In this week's episode, I want to expand on some of the things I discussed last week, but mostly I want to talk about the essence of home. And, that is connected to last week's episode about modern homemaking as well. So like I said, if you haven't listened, go back and check it out because I think it was one of my better ones, I really enjoyed recording it. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about the essence of home. And home and homemaking are obviously very well connected. Being a modern homemaker is all about, being at home, whether that be with your children or with your pets or with your partner, husband, wife, etc. I recently asked on my Instagram account what people felt about their homes. And people said things like it was their safe space, it was their refuge, it was their space away from the world, it's where they felt safe, it's their own little haven. And lots of people said that they really appreciated normal homes and that spaces that are loved and lived in, and that is so how I feel about my home. The pandemic definitely changed how I felt about our home, I think, and not that I didn't love it before, but it just made me more aware of what home really means to me, I guess. We spent this really prolonged period of time in our home, and for a long time it was this safe space away from everything that was going on outside, and that really helped me embrace and really think about what I wanted from my home. Now, I live in what is considered a smaller home. I live in a split level flat, and a split level flat, if you are not aware, is basically across two floors. I always explain it like it's a mini house. I have downstairs, which I have my living room, kitchen, hallway, and also my patio doors, which lead out onto my balcony. And then upstairs we have our bathroom, hallway, and two bedrooms. And the funny thing is, the only thing I don't have is the garden aspect, because we also have a garage and we obviously live in a complex. That's the way it kind of works in the split level flat. And we also, there's ample parking and things like that. So the only thing we don't have is sort of like that accessibility to a garden. But our balcony is wonderful. We have a good sized balcony, a really good space, and it's been many different things to us over the years. And yeah, it's just a really nice little outdoor space. But without having the garden aspect is something that people will often mention to me a lot, especially since I had children. So we moved here almost 6 years ago, and when we moved here, we were newly married. We had been living in a rental flat, smaller than what we currently have. We'd been living in this rental flat, and I was relentless in my pursuit for this place because I thought it was a great space for us. We had intentions for the future to grow our family, and yeah, I just loved it. I loved, that it had a balcony, that it was upstairs, downstairs kind of thing, and it was like a little house. And I thought it was going to be a great starter home for us. And so when we moved here, it was just the two of us, and now here we are almost 6 years later, and it's my husband, myself, our two children who are 3 and 1, and our cat. So we have definitely expanded over time as well. And I think as we've had children, the question has always come up to other people of, are you going to move? And they're always a little surprised when I'm like, no, I'm not going to move. Especially when we had our second child. People are like, oh, you're going to move now, right? And it's like, no, we're not going to move now. I get it though. We live in a culture where we are almost trained to want the next bigger, better thing. This home was considered, even in my mind when we first bought it, a starter home. We would buy this, we would, get our feet on the property ladder, and then we would move on from here. And as time has gone on and my thinking has changed, I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. And people will, like I said, will often say like, oh, are you going to move now? Are you going to move now? And it's just not in our plans. What we feel and what we think is that the space completely works for us. Not always. There are, awkward sized rooms and things that I wish were a bit different, but that's the same in any space. Doesn't matter how big the space is. But the thing is that we actively try and work on fitting into our space rather than having to keep increasing our space because we have so much stuff. And as I've said in previous podcasts, we want to own less things. It's just stuff. And if we don't fit in our space, it's because we have too much stuff. And that goes for all kinds of things, whether it be clothes, whether it be kitchen stuff, whether it be kids' toys, all of these things. There is so much stuff that just comes with being human, doesn't it? And it feels good to really identify what works and what doesn't work. Over the years, there's been sort of several variations in each room. I've painted different things. Our home is our sanctuary. It is our safe space away from the world. It is a place where we make memories, where we laugh together, cry together. We have good days, we have bad days. But ultimately, it's our place where we are us, where we are our family. And there's nothing I love more than that. It doesn't matter where we are. We could be in a mansion, we could be in a studio. As long as we're together, that's all that matters to me. And so I understand where the question of, are you going to move because you're a growing family in a smaller space. But like I said, it's not about outgrowing the space. I hear that so often, people saying, oh, we've outgrown the space. It's because we have too much stuff. We have too much stuff. That's why we're outgrowing spaces. If we really think about the things we're bringing into the space and the things that we actually need, then we might realize that actually it's not the fact that we're outgrowing the space, it's that we're bringing too much stuff into the space. And so just reevaluating that and rethinking about what we really really need and how we can maybe live with less. And all of that in general feeds into, like, this capitalist consumer culture that we have, that we want to buy, well, not that we want to, that we're sort of taught that we should buy more, we need more, we need the next bigger, better thing. And it's just not true. And there are so many ways that you can sort of counteract that, whether that be by buying less, decluttering what you have, reorganizing, figuring out what you need and what you don't need, not always buying things brand new. It's still bringing things into your home, but there's much more thought behind that. And one of the things I hate, which is slightly off topic, but one of the things I hate is like this culture we have for, especially on social media, of like hauls. I was scrolling TikTok this morning, and it's like my guilty pleasure. I don't really use it too much for content, but sometimes it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. I'd like enjoy a scroll in the evening or on the weekend. And yeah, I was just scrolling TikTok and I came across an influencer who has a very large following, who repeatedly does hauls, which is common. I'm not calling anybody out. This is very much normal in social media culture. And I really wish it wasn't normal, because, it's just overconsumption, and it's just, oh, it just hurts my head. People can spend their money on whatever they want. Of course they can. I do, you do, we all do. But it's just, there's something icky that I don't love when we're living in a world that, is in crisis in so many areas, that we still indulge in this consumer practice of just buying loads of throwaway stuff, essentially, just for content. I don't love it. Now, as a homemaker, home is my space. Home is my sanctuary. Home is where I do my most purposeful work, and that be in raising my children, in creating food, in curating our space, and so much more. And I want to talk about each of those in a little more detail. And I'm going to start with curating our space. So, like I said, when the pandemic hit, we all realised how much our home either worked or didn't work, right? Lots of people came home from offices. My husband was one of them. And since then, he is now going to be home full time. And so one of the hardest things I had to manage was, where are we going to put him? It was, originally it was fine actually, because my daughter was just 1 year old when the pandemic hit, and she still co-sleeps with us now, but her bedroom was not really anything at the time. It was just a spare bedroom. We'd done the whole creating a nursery thing, but she never slept in there, and she still hasn't. And so we had the desk in there, and that was, just like an office space. And then as time's gone on, my poor husband has been in every location in the upstairs of our house. He has been in that room, then we moved him into our bedroom for a while, because we had my dad here after he was recovering from surgery during the pandemic. And we've moved him in various locations around our room. Now I've moved him back into the kids' bedroom, because both kids co-sleep with us, and that works for us at the moment. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'll probably talk about in a future episode. But just finding the space for him and for his desk, and he has like a double monitor, and he doesn't just fit in a small gap. And with a small home, that has been one of the most challenging things, and it still even though we've got like a sort of permanent location for him at the moment, at some point the kids will go into their own room, and then I don't know. Then where am I going to put him? Am I going to have him back in my bedroom? I don't know. But so it's often, a thought that crosses my mind, like, where are we going to put him? Where is his desk going to go? And, a lot of us have found that during the pandemic that, by work practices changing to either like a more stay at home model, or now for many a hybrid model, we have to find these spaces in our home that can be work, but, when work's done, they're not in the way. And, with us being home all the time during the pandemic, I was downstairs raising a 1-year old while he was working, and he worked the entirety all the way through the pandemic. And yeah, it was just making our space work for us to be at home 24/7, him to be working, and it was a lot. And I know a lot of you probably feel the same. But it was the pandemic that sparked this in me to make our home more how I wanted it. And it wasn't that it wasn't how I wanted it before, because I've always taken great pride in the things that I do around our home. I always say my home is a normal home. It's not a show home. If you're coming here to see, a carefully staged home, then this isn't the one for you. Even as I'm recording this, I'm looking at my skirting out into my hallway, and I'm like, God, that's been chipped for ages. Will I ever paint that? Maybe, maybe not. And so my home is a normal home. It's got fingerprints all over it with 2 toddlers. It's got, bashed paintwork. It's got carpet that needs redoing. We never replaced the carpet when we moved in. It's just very lived in, but it's perfect. I love lived in homes. And, not everything has its place, but I'm trying to get to this stage where we have less stuff, and we've been actively trying to do that for a long, long time. And so creating what I now call an intentional home. And by that, I mean, like, I'm very intentional with each of my spaces, and they have to work for all of us. So, that can mean simple things like, for the children, there is no space in the home that is not accessible to them. So that means making all the spaces safe. One of the places that I did that the most, and I did that with my daughter first of all. So when I had my son, it was very easy to sort of integrate him into our home because we'd already made everything very safe. And that is our living space. Now, our downstairs is sort of an open plan situation. We have a large, what I would consider a large living space, and that sort of filters around. We have like a 3/4 wall in length. It's a full height wall, and it covers 3/4 of the room, and that feeds around into our kitchen area. So it's open plan, but it's also not visibly always open plan. Like, the kitchen is part of it is hidden behind the wall, and so when there's dirty dishes on the counter, they are not all up in my face. So a living space is multifunctional downstairs. We have, like I said, our kitchen, which although it's open plan access, we do have like a baby, it's not really a baby gate, it's like a baby fence to separate the area, just to keep the kids safe. More so the 1-year-old. It's just nice to have that space where we don't have to lock all the cupboards, and we did have it open and it just didn't really work for us. So it's nice to have that space that's a little separate. But in the main living space, it's obviously our living room. We have our television in there, but it's also our dining space, and it's also predominantly the children's play space. And I guess with all this in mind, like, it's really important that the space functions for all of us. So, we have a space that is a living space where, we can sit down, chill out, talk, watch TV. I have a chair where I want to sit when I do my morning routine, and, which is a lot of like journaling and things like that while I have my coffee. But it's a play space as well. So we have shelves and a little storage for the children. We have minimal toys. We do toy rotation, and so it's not overwhelming. But we do have that space for them as well. It's our dining space. So to fit all of this in and it not be cluttered in any way, shape, or form, it actually feels very sort of open and spacious. We have one of those drop leaf tables that stores the chairs in and stuff. So it's this open plan space with just furniture that really works for us. So we're very mindful and intentional about the furniture and the pieces that we have in there, that they really work for us and work for the space and work for what we want to achieve from the space. And our living space is just one space within our home that we create with absolute intention. Instead of trying to cram everything into this space, like a full-size table, lots of toys, sofa and TV and everything. It's about picking pieces and being intentional about what comes into our home and what works within our home. So our living space can very quickly be a space for entertaining. It can very quickly be a play space for the kids, a learning space in their home education. It can also be our dining space, but it also, these extra elements they tuck away when they're not needed. So it's about being thoughtful and about being intentional with that space. And our bedroom, is the same. We're very intentional with that space. So for us, something very important is co-sleeping. So we have a super king size bed. So we all fit in it very comfortably. I have a little workspace up here where I sit while I'm podcasting, when I'm podcasting for my other podcast with Talia, which is Slow the Heck Down. We have soft lighting, so it feels very relaxed and calming. And we literally just have our bedside tables, and a wardrobe. My desk is part of my bedside table. It's actually a fold out desk. I love it. I love, love, love it. It folds out when I want to use it, folds in when I'm not using it. It looks like just a little small cabinet on the wall, and it's absolutely perfect for small home living. I often think that when we eventually transition the kids to their own room and create space for them in there, that I'm going to buy another one so that they have the same, because it's wonderful. Now, it doesn't quite work for a desktop computer, but I just use a laptop, and it's perfect for like making notes, typing. It's perfect if you're like writing, podcasting. It's or even just a place to sit with a cup of coffee. I just wanted that little space. So I have a little fold out chair as well. And so, I hope this is sort of highlighting that you can create these really small little intentional spaces that feel really, really good. My desk feels really, really good. It's my tiny, tiny little corner, and it looks beautiful. It's a bit messy at the moment, but it looks beautiful. It feels good, and yeah, that's a huge part of living, creating a life of intention, living with intention, creating intentional spaces. It's about finding what looks good and therefore feels good for you. So another thing that is big around our home is plants. Now, like I said, I live in a small home. I have a balcony. This time of year, not the greatest. I'm recording this in November and it's currently raining outside. But like I said, we don't have a garden, we just have a balcony. And for many, many years, the balcony was my place. It was the place that I did all of my gardening. In the last year, we have had our own allotment, and I am slowly transitioning away from growing on the balcony because the allotment, it just works better for us. It's not too far away from where we live. It's actually a walkable distance if we wanted to, and I do love having plants and greenery around. I'm not the best with house plants. I'm gonna put it out there. I bought a load of house plants last year, spent a fair bit of money, and I've killed most of them. I've got ivy, which I bought from Patch Plants. I love Patch Plants. They're a really simple way to sort of order house plants and stuff. But it said on Patch Plants that they're unkillable. Oof. I've killed 2 out of the 3 of them, and the third one's not looking that great, if I'm honest. But I love them. They really bring something to a home, I think. But because I'm not great with houseplants, luckily I'm better at actually outdoor plants and my allotment. I've had an incredible harvest from the allotment this year. I'm very excited about going into next year. But I've got a lot of fake plants as well. And I do much better. I don't kill them. But I like having that greenery around. I like so for me, I appreciate the things when it comes to creating intentional spaces. I'm learning what I really love. I love soft lighting. I like fairy lights. I like, and we have some fairy lights up in both our bedroom and also in our living room. I really, really like white furniture, but I do like sort of key pieces of natural looking wood. So in my bedroom, I have natural looking wood wardrobe and greenery in the form of a real house plant, but also I have some fake plants as well, and they just sort of bring the outside in. Downstairs in my living room is very much white furniture, but we do have a really nice hardwood wooden floor, and we have a lot of greenery and plants and stuff down there. And so it just brings these very sort of natural aspects and natural woods and plants and stuff from the outside in. And these can really help me feel relaxed, and they might make you feel relaxed as well. But living intentionally and creating intentional spaces within your home is all about finding the things that make you feel calm, feel relaxed, and feel like your space really works for you. So it's like a multitude of things. It's about the things that you have and that you own and how to make them fit in your space, whether that be by owning less, or how you create your space. But it's also about the way your space feels to you. So clutter can be a big part of that. When you feel over cluttered, when you've got too much stuff and it feels like everything's like closing in on you, that can feel too much, and that can affect your mood. And so creating an intentional space that doesn't feel like that, but also is functional and works for you and has all these elements that just make you feel good, that's what living intentionally within your home is about. And you'll start to notice, once you start creating these intentional spaces around your home, that you feel different things in different spaces. I feel very calm and relaxed in my bedroom, but I also feel very calm and relaxed in my living room, and my living room can often be chaos because it's the play space as well. But I do feel very calm, very relaxed, and that's because I've intentionally added these aspects that make me feel that way. And my kitchen is always very chaotic. It's a very well loved, lived in kitchen. There's always plates, there's always something dirty, I'm always loading and reloading the dishwasher. It's a constant, it's relentless. People continue to eat and make things dirty, just the same way as they continue to wear clothes and I have to keep washing them. It is constant, it is relentless, but it is lived in and loved, and that, as a homemaker, makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like that everything's working as it should do. And it doesn't have to be like one big clean sweep of your home. I have been doing this for 3 years and things have changed. The second bedroom in our home is the only bugbear that I really have. Everything else, while may be a work in progress some of the time, is it all feels good. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. It doesn't have to be like gutting it and starting again. It's just figuring out what you want from each space. And I take it one space at a time. My mind is always turning, it's always thinking about how can I be smarter here? How can I do better here? How can I do this? How can I do that? And it's just, just part of a hobby of mine and just making this space so wonderful. And it does feel so, so good. So, how do you start doing all of this without panicking and gutting your house and chucking out all your furniture and starting again? Because that's not the intention here. Something that I do a lot is a lot of repurposing. I don't often have to buy something new. Now, the downstairs table, the drop leaf table I spoke about, something that I did purchase new and something that I felt was a worthwhile investment because the table we had wasn't working for our space. It was too big, the chairs were too cluttered, it just didn't work. And this table single-handedly changed that space. I guess my tips would be, pick one space and start there. Think about, what works for you. And I try and do all this with like limited to no money at all. There are things I do purchase, but only if they're absolutely necessary. A lot of what I have around my home, I move about, like I said, repurpose, figure out how things can work better. Just yesterday, I put up a shelf. I was going to say I did not put up a shelf. I asked my husband to put up a shelf. I'll do anything. I'm a DIY queen. I've painted this house from top to bottom. I've repurposed furniture. I've refurbished things. I just don't have the confidence of drilling a hole in the wall to put a shelf up. I think it's just because I've not done it. And you know what? It's okay. We all have our strengths, and I like to get my husband to do the shelves. If I had to do it, I would of course do it, but I'm not going to say he enjoys it because he certainly doesn't. But he always does it with a good heart, at least, when I'm like, can you put this shelf up for me? And I thought as I was saying all of that, I'm, dismissing this idea that, I can be a modern woman who can do anything. And I am a modern woman who could do anything. I just choose not to do the shelves because I know myself. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And my weakness is that I would definitely, I'm like a bull in a china shop sometimes, and I'll mess it up because I know what I'm like. I will not take enough due care and attention to make sure that I'm doing it right because I want it done quickly. So I delegate that task to someone who is better at it than I am. So I think when you're going about creating a home intentionally, like I said, take one space. Take a space and figure out if it works for you. And if it doesn't, just take a moment to think about what would make it better. What do you want from the space? For example, my living room. I need my living room to be a living space. I need it to be a play space, a home education space, and an eating space. And how do I make that work so all of those things can happen within that space, but it doesn't feel cluttered, it doesn't feel too much, and it feels like each thing works. And that's definitely how I feel about my living room now. It takes time, and sometimes it can take 1, 2, 3 sort of goes at figuring it out. But certainly for my living space, I painted it once not long after we moved in, and it's a very pale pink, and I've never changed it. I have no intention of changing it. I could probably do with a fresh coat of the paint, which I still have some left of, because it's been coming up 6 years and I've got a lot of children's sticky hands and knocks and dents and stuff now. But I've never changed that. That feels good in that space. I've accessorized the space. We haven't bought any new furniture in there other than the table from when we moved in. Oh, and I just purchased the chair, but that was important because nobody seemed to let me sit on the sofa. And when I say nobody, I mean the kids. And I just wanted somewhere to rest my weary legs sometimes. But other than the new chair, because I couldn't find one second hand that would fit in the space because it needed to be quite small, and I'd been looking for a while and I couldn't find anything. But other than the chair and the table, which we bought, the table's been there, I think, about 2 years now. We've had that. Everything else is stuff that we've had for a long time. Whether it be when we first got married, we had like IKEA vouchers that we got given for presents for some things, and so like we've had some of this furniture for a while, and we just figure out, how it works and where it works and what works best for it. Our sofa was secondhand. It was secondhand when we got married, so nearly 7 years ago, and that's still functioning really well. There's absolutely no need for a new sofa yet. And cushions, there's just been a few bits and bobs that we've bought along the way, but a lot of the time I repurpose things, like the shelves that we use for the children's toys. They're bookshelves that we had when we first got married, and I just move things about the house and figure out how things are going to work in different spaces. And I've always done that. I even did that in our rental place as well. So it's just taking that space and figuring out how you can make all the elements work for you. And that's what I've done. I've done the same throughout the whole house to make the kitchen work for us, to make the living space work for us. I've recently done our hallway, and when I say done, I haven't done anything particular, but I did put the old doors that I'd taken off a couple of years ago, I'd put them back on. Ray put them back on, my husband. I didn't put them back on. But we put them back on and created a better sort of shoe storage, coat storage cupboard, which is what it hadn't been that way before. The doors were on when we moved in. I removed them several years later because I needed a little workspace, and this was sort of like height of the pandemic. My dad was here as well, recovering from his heart surgery. My husband was working in our room. Our room didn't look like it currently does. I had my little fold down desk and I needed space for it, so I used that cupboard space. So we took the doors off so I had more light and I wasn't actually sitting in a dark cupboard. And over time we moved my desk away from that space, and yeah, it just ended up being quite cluttered. So the other weekend I said to my husband, can we put the doors back on? They were just stored down in our garage, and we put the doors back on. We put the shoe, we've got like one of those shoe drawer things that pull out, and we put that in there. I put an old like coat hook up on the wall. We have a coat hook already in there at the very back, but I had another one that I took down when we moved in and that I've put at a lower level, so that'd be great for the kids' coats. And now the hallway doesn't look cluttered. It looks nice and tidy and organised, and it just feels really good. And so just really simple changes can make the world of difference. And like I was saying about the shelf that we put up the other day, that was off of an old bookcase, I think, because it's got sort of like the bookcasey, like plastic coated chipboard look. And all I'm going to do is the shelf is white, but you can see like the chipboard, obviously, like you can on a bookcase shelf. So I'm literally just going to paint it white. And I did the same in our bathroom with some old shelves that were actually left behind When we moved in, they were in a cupboard, and they are like old bookcase shelves as well. And I did the same. I just got some brackets, popped them up on the wall above the toilet. Voila, more storage. My bathroom is tiny, and so the upward storage and upward storage in general in small homes is fantastic. You don't want to overdo it because it can feel like it's all coming in on you, but just be intentional about where you do these things, and it can make the world of difference. So creating these intentional spaces around your home can be about, obviously, about the furniture you have, how the space works for you, how much stuff you have in the space. Decluttering is super important, and almost keeping lightly on top of that as well. But also, the colours that you have in your home are important, and only you will know what feels good for you. And so just take time to really look at space. Things don't have to be done all in one go. You just take time and find out what feels good, what works, and don't be afraid to change it up a few times. I'm always moving around the house with a stool or a chair or table and just thinking that doesn't quite work, let me move that out. And over time you will find things work for you, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be expensive either. So I hope that was helpful, just to sort of like underpin what intentional living within your home can really look like, particularly living in a small home where you've got multiple uses for different things. When it comes to living in a small home, I love it. I love the smallness, I love the coziness, I love the creativity that it brings, and I love, the amazing things you can do with the space. I categorically would not want a larger home. And that brings me on to something that I am going to close with. So, like I said at the beginning, I live in a small 2-bedroom split level flat. And I have said for the longest time, no, I don't want to move. No, I don't want to move. No, I don't want to move. And at the moment, I'm very happy here. We are very happy here. We have some ongoing issues in terms of cladding, and something I'm not going to be speaking about in too much detail because that's an ongoing legal process. But when we are able to sell this place, because currently that's not a possibility, when we are able to sell this place, I think that is what we might do. Because while I love this home and I love everything about it, and I love the spaces I've created here, I love what it means to us, I have slightly different plans now. I don't want a home that is any bigger. I don't want more stuff. If anything, I want to go in the other direction. So we would love to purchase some land and buy or build a small home on it. And when I say small home, I do mean a small home. I would love if it worked for us, because we would like a 3-bedroom tiny home. And I don't quite know what that's going to look like yet. We have some ideas. We would like to look more into the Honka eco homes and potentially building one of those. Basically, we want to create a small home. We don't want a bigger home. Like I said, I can't stress that enough. I don't want to buy a bigger home, and I don't want a bigger mortgage. I don't want a mortgage at all. We want to move away from this dependency idea. We would love to buy land, put a small home on it, grow more of our own food like we do at the allotment, and maybe have a small holding, maybe some chickens, and just be a bit more self-sufficient, the ability to live off-grid. And so it's just a dream at the moment. but something that we are definitely working towards. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you found it helpful, and I would love to talk to you more about this. So head over to my Instagram. My handle is @lifeonplot44, which incidentally is the name of my allotment. And I discuss over there all things slow, simple, seasonal, intentional living. I talk about being a homemaker. There might be a little bit of motherhood, not too much because I keep my children quite private, but all sorts of things about growing on my allotment, what it's been like growing on my balcony, and everything about living that simple, intentional life. So I would love for you to join me over there. If you're able, please leave a rating or review on this podcast. I would be so grateful. And please do come follow me over on Instagram. That's where I hang out most of the time. Community is so important to me, and I would love to see you there. So until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode.